Well, I mean, the first thing I think to be said, Annette, is these sort of videos released by Hamas don't get shown on Israeli television. But of course, Israelis do have access through social media. They do see them. And there's no doubt it shocks people here, just as the deaths of 3 soldiers after they escaped from captivity with Hamas in Gaza at the end of last week, and they subsequently were shot by Israeli soldiers who thought they were Hamas fighters, has shocked Israeli society and gained momentum for those who are campaigning for the release of the hostages as the priority at the moment. If you see behind me here, there's a constant demonstration that goes on day and night of family members, relatives and friends of the hostages, 129 of them now still held in Gaza, trying to persuade the government to prioritise negotiations above military action. For the part of the Israeli government, yes, obviously, it's under massive pressure. The fact that Lloyd Austin, the US Defense Secretary, was here yesterday and that last week Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, was here, both of them putting pressure on the Israelis to start shifting towards a different phase of its military operation, less of the blitz tactics that we're seeing at the moment and something much more focused in the future. That puts immense pressure on the Israelis, and there's no doubt that they recognize that if needs be, the Americans can force their hand. But publicly, they're putting on a determined stance. Benjamin Netanyahu, for instance, the Prime Minister, at a closed meeting of the Knesset, that's the Parliament here's Foreign Affairs Committee, said last week that David Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister of Israel, had been a distinguished Prime Minister, but his failing had been his inability to stand up to American pressure. Any Israeli Prime Minister, he said, had to be able to do that. By implication, that was him. So no sign at the moment, at least publicly, of backing down.
And Rob, what's the latest in regards to those hostage negotiations?
Well, what we're seeing, I think, at the moment is more negotiations about negotiations than anything else. David Barnea, the head of Mossad, that's Israel's spy agency, has been in Warsaw for talks with the head of the CIA and with Qatari representatives to see whether it's possible to renew talks with Hamas. The aim being to have another of those pauses in the fighting which we saw at the end of November, which would lead, hopefully, to the release of more hostages. But as I said, it's more talks about talks than anything else at the moment. Hamas was quite categorical a few days ago when it said that for more hostages to be released, Israel would have to announce a full-on ceasefire, which is something the Israelis are not prepared to do at the moment. Otherwise, Hamas said, the only way that Israel will get its hostages back would be if they were killed. So at the moment, there's very little sign either on the Hamas side or on the Israeli side suggesting that a deal is in the offing.